Welcome to the College Football Show. It's your boy George Wrighster. And today we got to talk about the Heisman Trophy. And I'm going to give you my top 5 predictions. And we got a huge shakeup in the college football media landscape. Josh Pate is leaving 247 and CBS to go over on to On3 and why that matters to Unafraid Show and why it matters in terms of the college football media landscape and those websites with rivals and everything else in between. And then the first step to college football stability, unionization is coming to college football. And we got to talk about the top 25 poll that came out from the coaches. It got released, and we are going to compare it to the best preseason top 25 that there is over here on the Unafraid Show. So thank you for coming here. Make sure that you like, subscribe, get notifications, and most importantly, share, because this is the place where we talk about college football simply, honestly, and give you the information that you can't get anywhere else. So be one of us and make sure that you take the information that you go share with your friends, because you will then be the talk of the college football town. But we are going to start with the Heisman Trophy. And let's talk about it honestly, right? Because it's no longer about necessarily being the best player in college football. It's about being the best player on a team that wins and then stays in the national spotlight all year. And it does help a lot if you are a quarterback, because in the last 11 years, the 9 of the Heisman winners have been quarterbacks. The only exceptions last year with Travis Hunter, and he had to play both ways, essentially doing what Charles Woodson did. The outstanding wide receiver. Actually, he did more than Charles Woodson did. Outstanding wide receiver and an outstanding DB as well. And then you had Devonta Smith winning in 2020. And even then, dude was putting up video game numbers on an undefeated Alabama team. And since 2010, only 4 non-quarterbacks have won the award altogether? 4. That's it. Derrick Henry in 2015, Mark Ingram, and then obviously Smith and Travis Hunter. So you guys don't miss anything that we're going and doing here on the Unafraid Show, because every Heisman winner in the past decade, they did come from a team that finished in the top 10 of the final AP poll, with 7 of them making the college football playoff. Let's just look at it in the history, right? If you go all the way back to 2017, Baker Mayfield, quarterback at Oklahoma, made the playoff. Kyler Murray, quarterback at Oklahoma, made the playoff. Joe Burrow, 2019, quarterback, LSU, record-setting year, won the national championship. Devonta Smith won it all. 1,800 yards receiving, Bama went undefeated. Bryce Young took Bama to the national title game in 2021. Caleb Williams in 2022. Now, they missed the playoffs, but he's, you know, 11-3, top 10 team. You get the picture. Jaden Daniels, that's one of the exceptions because his team finished number 13 in the final poll, but his stats were absurd. Highlight reels, they could not be ignored. And then you had Travis Hunter this last year. So this is mainly turned into a quarterback award. But more importantly than that, your team has to stay in the national conversation and be relevant. They have to be super relevant as it comes to the national conversation. Otherwise, you have no chance. And you have to have some preseason hype. So, with that in mind, here are the 5 guys that I believe will end up in the as Heisman finalists at the end of the year. And we are going to start with the guy from the team that I picked to win the national championship. So you guys can go back, go look at the college football playoff show, and go look at the video where I talk about the preseason top 25, because I have been consistent, I have been honest, and I have been real. And Cade Klubnik and Clemson are going to be in the national conversation all year, because he's a young man that's still trying to prove himself. His sophomore year, obviously, that wasn't pretty, because it was a decent year by college football standards, but up to Clemson standards, nah, that wasn't going to cut it. Or even what we believe the standard is for himself. Because last year, He improved his yards per attempt by over a full yard and had a 6-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio over there in Clemson, South Carolina. And he's got great weapons. He's got two of the top 7 wide receivers in the entire country. And he's got a great schedule to set him up because it starts out in the national spotlight at the beginning of the season with a game against LSU and another guy that just so happens to be on this list. And then he's going to play a long list of teams along the way that struggled to defend the pass in 2024. So that gives him help like Jaden Daniels got 2 years ago winning a Heisman Trophy. Bad schedule or bad defenses or a situation where your defense doesn't necessarily have to pan out, but Clemson's defense should be good this year. Now, he'll be on a top team. If they can beat LSU, he plays well. He will have the edge over Garrett Nussmeier as well. So there is something, and he will have some preseason hype as well. Because if you think about it, Cade Klubnik is the smart bet for 2024. The smart bet because that LSU defense was putrid prior to that. So to think that they're going to be rolling on all cylinders at the beginning of the season, yeah, nah. And then, 3 of his last 4 games could be against ranked opponents with Florida State, Louisville, and South Carolina. So everything sets up for Cade Klubnik if Clemson can win, especially that South Carolina game and that LSU game and be a college football playoff team. That means that he will be standing on that Heisman stage. Now, I just mentioned his name, and that is Garrett Nussmeier, quarterback over there at LSU. I believe that he has a legitimate chance to be on that Heisman stage because last season he got to 525 pass attempts last season. That's 40 more pass attempts than Cade Klubnik. And that was in one less game. And one thing that Brian Kelly, his head coach, is going to do, they are going to air it out. That's how Jaden Daniels was able to win the Heisman Trophy while he was there at LSU. And truthfully, Brian Kelly has a long track record of quarterbacks making a leap going into their second year in the system. And if LSU's defense actually gives the Tigers a chance to compete at the highest level, then yes, Garrett Nussmeier is going to have his name in the Heisman conversation just by default because he's going to put up stats and then he would be on a top 10, top 12 team as well. That absolutely matters. Now, he is going to have to cut down his turnovers just a little bit because he threw 12 picks last year. And then the average number of interceptions that the last 6 Heisman winning quarterbacks have thrown in a year that they won the award was 6. And none of them threw more than 7. So, Nussmeier, for him to win, he's going to then have to protect the football. Now, another kid that I do believe is going to be on the Heisman stage is Dante Moore over there at Oregon. Now, people keep treating Dante Moore like he's this unknown commodity, walk on quarterback, little engine that could. But if you think about it, when he was at UCLA, we actually watched him do some very positive things in 2023. Now, granted, everything was not perfect. Not by any stretch of the imagination, because if it was, he probably would have stayed at UCLA. But then he transfers, sits behind Dylan Gabriel for a year, and is like, oh, you don't think that this kid that everybody in the country was after, who actually did some good things as a freshman, chose to sit down and learn and mature voluntarily when he could have went to other places to go play, all of a sudden that he's going to be a bum? No, I don't think so. I do not think so because truthfully, his season numbers as a true freshman, they weren't even all that different than DJ Lagway's at Florida last year. The difference is UCLA was just bad. And Lagway is heading into his sophomore year with tons of hype. People actually think that he might end up on the Heisman stage. Now, one of the complaints about Moore at UCLA was inefficiency. So lucky for him, he's in year 2 of an Oregon offense that is built at making the most efficient decision. We saw it out of Bo Nix. It got called a check down merchant. Oh, he'll never make it. Then goes in there and has a fantastic rookie year in the NFL. They tried to talk about Dylan Gabriel. Same thing. Oh, now he's in a position where he might get a chance to play as a rookie as well in the NFL. Come on, man. But here is the truth. Like, I am taking a risk with putting Moore's name out there, but I've been consistent about it. because I think he's on the perfect situation to thrive out there at Oregon. But voters don't watch every single game, especially West Coast games. So a lot of it is going to depend on what Moore does with the whole country watching when he travels to Happy Valley to play Penn State. And you know that the Oregon marketing machine is going to push him as long as the Ducks are in contention. So if you think about it, Oregon is starting inside of the top 10 in everybody's in all the major polls. So you start inside the pack inside the top 10, you go 10 and 2, 11 and 1, you are going to have a legitimate shot to be on the Heisman stage. So this ain't far-fetched at all. So slow down with that. All right. Now this one. A lot of people have been preaching his Heisman hype for 2 years now. That is Arch Manning. Now, remember, the Heisman is voted on by a bunch of people who follow storylines above everything else. And I repeat, no college football player has a more recognizable and hyped up storyline than Arch Manning in 2015. And he would actually have a chance to do something that neither one of his uncles, Eli or Peyton, had a chance to do, which was actually win the Heisman Trophy. Now, all eyes are going to be on him in Austin, Texas. And all he has to do, if we're really being honest, is to not suck. If he doesn't suck, he's going to be in the Heisman conversation all year long. And even if he doesn't improve, you just take what he did last year and extrapolate that data over a full season and put him in Steve Sarkisian's system, you're looking at a potential 4,500 yards and 44 touchdowns. And plus, he can run a little bit because he's athletic. He's a mobile quarterback, not a runner, not a statue. He's a mobile quarterback, which is exactly what people want nowadays in the backfield, making every decision at the quarterback position. Now, the question is, what's going to happen with Arch taking on a tougher opponents than he did last year with an inexperienced offensive line because they graduated so much talent. I mean, but here's the truth. But even 80% of those totals that I just talked about for a first year starter is going to get him some votes. And then the name recognition and being on one of the better teams in college football is going to help. Now, the last one is Jeremiah Smith. And we have seen it is not easy for a wide receiver to win the Heisman. It is not. But it is also not impossible because we just saw it with Devonta Smith. And I will not count Travis Hunter as much because Travis Hunter was literally playing both sides of the ball. But when you come into a season as the consensus best player in football on a defending national champion team with a wide receiver room that's good enough to discourage defenses from bracketing you, not that double covering him is going to be, that not that that would even matter because he's bigger, quicker, and stronger and faster and more agile than pretty much anybody that he's lined up against. Here's the truth. Jeremiah Smith is up against it because his hype is starting so incredibly high. So if he goes out and just does what he did last year, he ain't gonna be on the Heisman stage. He has to go silly. He's got to go dumb. He's got to go stupid for him to be able to win the Heisman Trophy. And when you look at his season last year, 1/3 of Jeremiah Smith's touchdowns last year came in the college football playoff. And this is a regular season award. So how does that figure? So Smith is going to need to equal his, total season production last year in the first 12 to 13 games of the year to actually stay in the conversation and make the finals. But he also needs to do two other very important things. He absolutely has to have a good game in the opener against Texas. That is an absolute must for him to stay in the Heisman conversation. And they had the best pass defense in the country last year. And he needs to make good on that guarantee to beat Michigan. That is that is the second thing that he needs to do. And then that leaves us with with a few names. That leaves us with a few names that I believe could replace Jeremiah Smith if those two things don't happen. Number one, we got John Mateer over at Oklahoma. Now, he was lights out at Washington State. We're talking about a 3,000 yard pass or potentially with 1,000 yards rushing as well, which should put you on the Heisman stage. But this feels like it's going to have to be a mentality switch for the Sooners because Boomer Sooner last year, they played football like, hey, offense, don't lose the game for the defense. Not the offense go out there and win it for us. Hey, defense, you do your job. No, it was, hey, offense, hey, don't lose it for the defense. Don't turn the ball over, make silly mistakes. So if the Oklahoma offense is significantly more explosive this year, they'll be in good shape. Another name is Lenora Sellers because he's got games against Clemson, at Texas A&M, at LSU, and they play Bama. So you do that and you take care of business and you are a college football playoff type team. Lenora Sellers at South Carolina is going to have a shot at the Heisman Trophy finalist, being a finalist for the award. Another one is DJ Lagway. I do not believe DJ Lagway is going to be on that stage, and not. I don't think there's a way. And it's not because he's not talented. It's just that he missed all the spring ball. He started fall camp hurt, so it's going to be tough for him to be his optimal self, or live up to all the hype when you're not fully healthy and you haven't had as much practice time leading up to it. That is the only reason why DJ Lagway is out of this conversation. We got to talk about Drew Aller. He has every single thing teed up on the platter. Running backs, offensive line, wide receivers, defense, a defensive coordinator just won a national championship game. And he's got Oregon at home. They play Ohio State. What more do you need to be able to win a Heisman Trophy and get on that stage? But the problem is Drew Aller has to be better. He's got to be the best version of a game manager because he has not proven yet that he is special. So he either has to be special or be the best game manager around and beat Oregon and beat Ohio State, and then the trophy will probably be his. And the last one is my ultimate dark horse for the Heisman stage because nobody was predicting Cam Scatterboo to be there last year. And my Cam Scatterboo for this year, boom, Demond Williams. Demond Williams over there at Washington. If Washington, who hosts Ohio State on Montlake this year, if they beat Ohio State, oh, you can book it. You can book it. Demond Williams will have cashed his ticket to be at the Heisman ceremony. So y'all just take that with what you will. All right, next thing up. Josh Pate is leaving 247. Josh Pate is leaving 247 and going to On3 and On3/Rivals. This is a big deal. This is a big deal because in the college football media landscape, where digital media landscape, Josh Pate is the biggest name around. Obviously, you have the Cover 3 podcast, which is good, Solid Verbal. Joel Klatt does this thing, but Joel Klatt's a little bit different because he's an announcer. So it's a little bit different. You got Unafraid Show, you got a few other shows that are really, really good as well. But this is significant because Josh Pate is the guy who ends up on some of the the videos for some of the SEC teams and all that stuff. So, but this has proven something, right? Because Josh Pate started out as an independent creator, right? Similar to the Unafraid Show, unattached. But then he moves over to 247 slash CBS, and now he's with the corporate behemoth. And now he leaves there and goes to On3. So this proves that no matter how independent you are, how big you get, you always need some level of distribution and amplification to send things up. And this feels like Kevin Durant to the Warriors right now. The Warriors went 73-9. On3 is going 73-9 right now. They have upped their ante. They have upped a lot of the game. And then their founder, Shannon Terry, is the one who basically started this whole recruiting site business stuff. And now he's upped the ante with On3. And now let's talk about what this means for On3 and Rivals, because On3 picked up Rivals. And then you're like, aren't they competing sites? Well, they have turned rivals into the high school arm. So high school recruiting. And that's what 247 specializes in, but also college football content as well. And so Rivals and On3 are essentially splitting the duties. Rivals is going to take the high school sports duty, while On3 is going to focus exclusively on college football and be their college football entity. Like, these are supposed to be two separate things. But what does this mean? Because you also have a big, a guy who's been pushed by On3 in DJ Piquel. He's a guy who is Josh Pate replacing him. Will DJ go somewhere else? Did they over recruit him like they did? Did they recruit over him like they do in college football? Where, a guy sitting there thinking it's my turn up next, and then here comes Buddy coming out the transfer portal. First round pick coming out the transfer portal. You're like, yo, I thought I was up next, fam. And that's going to be the question. So I do believe that there are going to be some significant moving parts and shuffling of chairs where with Josh Pate going over to On3. And I did notice that this was labeled as a partnership and not that he's just coming into On3. And this is where Josh has done a really good job is instead of just working for a corporate behemoth, he still has owned his IP. So there's a level of freedom and independence. That means that when you leave places, that means that you take your RSS feed for your podcast. That means that you keep your YouTube channel and you don't have to start fresh and start all over again. And those things are extremely valuable. And this is why I chose to do what I did with the Unafraid Show, chose what I chose to do with, George Wrighster's college football podcast, is because that way, once the corporate behemoth comes calling, now we got options. And we have options, on the back end as well, where you grow together and everything else. But now there has been some a little bit of drama, right? There's been a little bit of drama surrounding this whole thing. And the drama surrounding the Josh Pate situation is not from Josh Pate. The drama surrounding it has been from Zak Herbstriet. And if you don't know who Zak Herbstriet is, and you probably recognize that name, Herbstriet, right? So this is what has been this tweet got some people real mad. This tweet got people real mad. Zak Herbstriet is going to be a national college football analyst for On3. Now, a lot of people got upset with this. I am not one of those people that got upset with it. Now, is there probably some nepotism involved with his dad, Kirk? Hell yes. But if I have that opportunity available to me, yes, I'm going to make sure that my kids set and straight, just like you guys are too. That doesn't mean that you get to stay in line. It just means that sometimes you get the first shot in line. So he's still gonna have to prove himself. And there have been people, oh man, hey, why are you hating? He ran his dad's Twitter account. And I'm looking at his Twitter account. Ain't a whole lot going on except Cincinnati Reds baseball and golden retriever picks on there. So I'm not mad at Zak. I hope that Zak does a great job On3. But you have a lot of journalists who are upset. Now, let me break this down for you that way you can fully understand it and give you my own personal perspective on it. So, me being a former NFL player, there have been times that I probably cut the line in front of other people where that have been doing it or wanting to be in this space where I had my own solo radio show on Mad Dog for 4 years. People probably wanted those spots who had been doing it significantly before I started in 2014. Now, I also, a lot of times, start out behind, like let's say a Cam Newton, who was a Heisman Trophy winner, NFL MVP. Cam jumps the line in front of me when it comes to jobs. This is why you cannot wait on other people to give you jobs, whether it's in the music industry, the college football, sports content industry, or anything else. You have to, in this day and age, everything is available for us to create the content and the audience that we want. And once your audience is built big enough, you become the line. You jump the front of the line. Because if you look at Josh Pate don't have no college football story and history. He wasn't a legendary player or nothing like that. A guy who understands college football, is a good storyteller, can relate to people, and shows up consistently day in and day out. That's all that people can ask for. And you know, they relate and enjoy your content. That's all you can ask for. Because the thing that we have learned in this attention economy is that the people who can grab the attention are going to generate the most money, the most clicks, and everything else, and get the most opportunities. So don't hate the player, just understand the game. All right. Next thing is college football is in order. And there is nothing that President Trump's executive order can do to save the college football that you know, love, and trust. The SCORE Act with Congress, that can't save the college football that you grow up with and the nostalgia. Going back on repealing NIL legislation and the transfer portal, that ain't gonna fix it either. There's only two things happening that can fix college football, and we are on the precipice of one of them happening. Because on Sunday, August 3rd, 23 Power Four general managers, they met with Jim Cavalli and Brandon Copeland of athletes.org, which is a players association, to discuss, amongst other topics, collective bargaining. Collective bargaining is the absolute answer for stability in college football. There is no other answer. It ain't President Trump. It ain't Congress. It ain't repealing NIL. None of that is going to cause stability. None of it. It is collective bargaining, and I will explain it to you. It is the same thing that goes on between the NFLPA, MLBPA, NHLPA, NBAPA, and the leagues. Those entities negotiate with the leagues for the rules that they are going to operate under. And in college football, that would be healthcare, scholarship, NIL, punishments, everything under the sun would be negotiated. And then, you know what? There are no antitrust lawsuits after that, because it has been collectively bargained. And guess what? If you want to play in college football, it'll be just like playing in those leagues. You have to operate under those rules, period. Otherwise, you can go choose to do something else, because these are the rules that govern the house. And if you don't like the rules that govern the house, then go file you a lawsuit and try to do something different, but it ain't going to amount to too much. Now, there was this meeting that happened on August 3rd, like I told you, 5-hour meeting. And it was reported that 100% of the general managers in attendance were for both collective bargaining and for removing a portal window during the season. So then you're like, okay, so if everybody's in agreement with this, what's the disagreement? I'll explain to you. Because they also discuss performance-based incentive compensation models and a formal agent certification process and registry. How can anybody hate any of these ideas? You can't. They make too much sense. But the problem is that it disrupts the power. Because if those entities, a players union, and who are they going to negotiate with? Because they can't negotiate with the ACC, Big 10, Big 12, and all the other conferences. They can't negotiate with them individually. There has to be one single entity that they negotiate with. But the problem with that is there is Tony Petitti, Greg Sankey, and the rest of the college football commissioners, your Mark, and all of them. They have to give up power. And that means that there will be a level of parity brought to college football. Because if it's under one entity, that means that they will negotiate their media rights together instead of SEC being with ABC and ESPN, Big Ten being with Fox. No, they will all negotiate. They will all negotiate together, end up getting more money, but the money is going to be divided in a way that everybody pretty much gets an equal share. And equal share means equal marketplace, equal everything. Now, granted, Ohio State is the Dallas Cowboys. They're going to be talked about more than anybody else. Alabama is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Oregon is the Patriots. All of the big names are going to get discussed way more. That doesn't mean that there's going to be parity of coverage and amount of games on national television. No, that's not what that means. But what it does mean is that those teams are going to be significantly more susceptible to having down spurts while now giving Rutgers, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, NC State all a significantly higher probability to win the conference. That's the difference. And that's the thing that is going to come down to. So when we get collective bargaining, then you will know that we are on the sign to stability. And that means that we essentially have a super conference, which when I talked to Kyle Whittingham in the interview on Unafraid Show, go check it out, talked about that he believes that that's coming in the next 5 years. Now, one of the people that was at that meeting, Jim Cavalli, who I talked about, he told Pete Nakos of On3 that the first step to getting anything done is to getting everybody in the same room together. And for Cavalli, it might seem that the first step is that's the first step into pushing his plan forward to enact federal legislation that would give D1 athletes a special non-employee status, which would fall right in line with Donald Trump's executive order as well. Now, in that executive order, it does say that athletes can't be designated as employees of the colleges. Now, mind you, executive orders, and I've talked about that, are only relevant to the executive branch, but he does have some control over federal funding to some of these schools. So that could be an issue for it. And he can, press some pressure point buttons if he really wanted to about that, if they didn't want to adhere to it. And you will get negotiations about Title IX and everything in between, which would make things a lot better. But there is another idea that exists out there that was put forward by the Tennessee Vols athletic director, Danny White, is that instead of designating them as employees of the universities, that the athletes then unionize. So then the athletes would all be employed by the same outside organization, which would subject and keep them intact and in line with the uniform rules. I'm not mad at Danny White's plan. And I actually think that that's better, because if the athletes are under one entity, unionized, now you can collectively bargain with one entity. And then everybody's playing under the same rules instead of people playing under different rules, which I think everybody is common sense stuff. All right, the next thing up. The coaches poll has come out. The preseason coaches poll has come out, and the coaches clearly established one thing. Now, mind you, maybe coaches actually do their own preseason ballots, but I know for a fact a lot of these coaches during the season are not doing their actual ballot. There's an assistant, intern, somebody else that's actually doing their coach's ballot. Because if you think about it, they're so focused on their own team and who their opponent is that week. They're not, you don't have, you know, uh Steve Sark Steve Sarkeesian on the week that he's playing Georgia, also watching SMU and watching BYU and Indiana. No, because he doesn't have them on the schedule at any point in time. So he's not watching that. But here is what we did learn from the coaches poll, is that the coaches clearly believe that a champion needs to lose before you can crown anybody else, because they don't care that Ohio State lost, 16, 17 starters. They don't care because of the way they voted Ohio State in the poll. And so they had Texas 1, you had Ohio State 2, Penn State 3, Georgia 4, Notre Dame 5, Clemson 6, Oregon 7, Alabama 8, LSU 9, Miami 10. And then you got Arizona State 11, Illinois 12, South Carolina, Michigan, Ole Miss, which I think is way overranked, SMU, Florida, Tennessee. Woo, Tennessee will not be a top 25 team this year. You can book it. Indiana, Kansas State, Texas A&M, Iowa State, BYU, Texas Tech, and Boise State. And here's what I saw with this is that it, first of all, it creates a preseason number 1 and number 2 of Texas and Ohio State. So that puts so much impact on the season and how those conferences are viewed from that game. So let's say that Texas goes out and beats Ohio State. And then Texas goes and loses 2 or 3 Big Ten games. Now all of a sudden, everybody's going to be trying to transitive property. Oh, see, look, the SEC is so much better than the Big Ten, and then vice versa. And mind you, both of these teams are breaking in new starting quarterbacks. Texas is breaking in a new offensive line. Ohio State lost a lot of starters. So are we going to judge that at the beginning of the season? But the point is that it sets it up. And I do believe that this coaches poll is going to impact the AP poll that is going to be coming out soon as well. It is 100% because there's no way that people don't see this poll. There's no way. And then the other part is that they are split on Clemson because Clemson got 2 first place votes. Think about this. Clemson got 2 first place votes and still finished behind Notre Dame, who got in 6th place, who got no first place votes. So that means for Clemson to finish 6th and get 2 first place votes, that means you got people putting Clemson 10, 11, 12 for them to finish 6th. And I find that interesting because I got Clemson as number 1, but people are looking at history. They're looking at ACC bias. They don't believe in, I guess, Cade Klubnik, while they believe in Drew Aller and other mysterious quarterbacks. They believe in these dudes. They believe in Gunnar Stockton at Georgia. They believe in all these guys. And whoever Notre Dame is trotting out there, was it Carr? More than they believe in what Dabo's doing over at Clemson. Just saying. That is something to be noteworthy as well. Another thing notable was that Oklahoma's not in this top 25. They were at number 26. So what does this say about the hope over there in Norman? Because this is the first time in 25, 26 years, something like that, that they were not in the preseason top 25 of the coaches poll. Now, here's the thing is, who said your boy don't know ball? Because when I put up my Unafraid Show poll, my Unafraid Show preseason top 25, oh, the comments were crazy. Oh, you don't know ball. You don't know what you're talking about, George. Blah, blah, blah. Well, I put mine out over a month, month and a half before the coaches poll even came out. And you know what? Interesting. Same top 12 as the Unafraid Show top 12. But honestly, those are the ones that are easy to get right. And it just shows you that I'm not over here on the crazy island. But here is what you have to notice and pay attention to. And I'm going to take you through the top 12 in a moment to see where the coaches and I disagree. But first, let's look at the teams that are outside the top 12 and how that they had them ranked. So let's pay attention to this. Well, actually, first of all, go over to Unafraid Show, watch my top 25 video. We'll put a link in the comment for it, the way you can, check it out and watch the comments as well. So you got Boise State coming in at number 25. And I believe that that's probably because the coaches wanted to make sure that they included at least one at-large team on their ballot. And Boise State was last year's college football playoff representative from the G5. And I don't have them in my top 25, but I do believe that it's understandable. Now, UNLV is my pick this year to make this the college football playoff. over Boise. But it's not crazy to have Boise in this spot. But there's no Ashton Jeanty. Their quarterback Maddox just okay, I believe. But if he takes a big step forward, they have a chance to get in. Now, the coaches have Texas Tech at 24. That's not far off from where I have them at 21. And this is the highest expectations, and we're being real. The highest expectations that the Red Raiders have had coming into a season in almost 2 decades. And it is going to be fun to see if Baron Morton can actually help them stay in the top 25 throughout the year. Now, one of the more fascinating things about the coaches poll is the respect that they have for BYU. Because even after losing their quarterback so late, Jake Ratzliff, they have BYU at 23, ahead of Texas Tech. And now I think that this is going to look smart for the first half of the season because BYU's schedule is 100% friendly. And LJ Martin is going to eat up a lot of yards in the running game. But I have them falling off later in the season, which is why I did not include them in my preseason top 25 at all. Now, at 21, the coaches have a two-way tie between Iowa State and Texas A&M. Now I have I have Iowa State at 16, and I have Texas A&M just outside of my top 25. Now I believe that Iowa State fans have legitimate concerns about the size and depth after last year, but a healthy linebacking crew and talented wide receiver transfers are going to help their star quarterback Rocco Beck, who people need to understand is a very good player. If you put Rocco Beck on Penn State, I would have them winning the national championship probably. And their head coach, Matt Campbell, he is clearly making noise in the Big 12. But down in College Station, when it comes to Texas A&M, they're going to need to handle business at home. They got Auburn, Florida, and South Carolina all coming to Kyle Field. And they're going to have to take care of them games to stay in the top 25. Now at 20, the coaches, they like Kansas State, 2 spots below where I have them. So that's 4 big teams in the first 6 spots. Maybe the Big 12 actually has a chance to get 2 teams in the college football playoff this year because I got them up there, coaches poll, AP poll, and when I put out my poll, everybody, oh my God, why are there so many Big 12 teams in the big half? In the second half of because that's where they belong. But here's the thing about that Kansas State team, though. Here's the thing about that Kansas State team. They're going to have to win non-conference games to maintain their respect. And I made a video about how important it is for the Big 12 this year that their non-conference as a conference is going to be crucial for them getting 2 playoff spots in. That is the only way. Now, I believe Kansas State's quarterback Avery Johnson and Austin Romaine, they could be 2 of the top 5 players in the conference this year, and you wouldn't be surprised to see them make the college football playoff, like I have them make it. At 19, the coaches have Indiana, and I've already been accused by everybody under the sun disrespecting Indiana by calling them a bowl team in 2025 instead of a playoff contender. But their head coach, Kurt Singetti, he might be on to something by scheduling week 9 conference games if Indiana is going to get this kind of early season respect from here on out. That will put them in a brilliant spot. Now, mind you, as a college football fan, I hate it and it stinks. But at Indiana, that might be the philosophy. Now, at 18, another 2024 college football playoff team in Tennessee. Now, if they had kept Nico Iamaleava, maybe, right? But that don't help the O-line, and it don't help their wide receiver core, who even lost Squirrel Wright. But now, this preseason ranking, oh God, it feels like they got a reward for last year's efforts because I can't see them going back there again. Now, I can't also hate at the coaches for having Florida at 17 because I got them at 15. And it's wild to me to think that Billy Napier, dude, is still on the hot seat after exceeding expectations of last year and setting the Gators up for his ranking going into 2025. But 17 is also the preseason coaches ranking that Dan Mullen had at Florida in 2021 when he got fired. And 11 weeks into the season, they gave him that permanent vacation for going 5-6. Now, expectations are only going to ramp up. So Billy Napier better hope that his star quarterback, DJ Lagway, is healthy. Now, at 16, just like the coaches, SMU. I got him at 13 because I think that they'll do a good job of replacing the production that they lost at running back, well, at the running back position. And the question is, will they repeat as a college football playoff participant? Well, it does help that they host both Louisville and Miami at home instead of going on the road. Now, at 15, we have the biggest difference, in my opinion, between myself and the coaches. They have Ole Miss, and I personally have Ole Miss as an 8-win team this season, but it doesn't mean I think that the Rebels are going to stink. I just think that they're going to have to reset a year behind a young Austin Simmons at quarterback, and they'll be right back for a CFP spot in 2026. So leave me alone, Ole Miss fans. I'm telling you like it is. Now, at 14, we both have Michigan. And I have Michigan at 14, contingent upon them starting Mikey Keene at quarterback and playing to win right now. Because I'm not sure that the coaches that they believe that Bryce Underwood is ready to lead a top five or top 15 rather team as a freshman. So I'm going to assume that we are on the same page here, that me and the Michigan coaches are on the same page. That yes, you might want to break Bryce Underwood in, but you're going to lose a game or two because of Bryce Underwood and playing a true freshman. True freshmen, aside from Jamil Holloway, don't win national championships. Just saying. The coaches, they have South Carolina at 13. I got them at 19. And they'll have every single opportunity to prove us wrong and get inside the top 10 quickly because they'll be favored in their first 5 games. And then they'll get the privilege of heading down to Baton Rouge to play LSU. Now, before we get to the top 12, who else did I have in my top 25 that weren't in the coaches' top 25? I had Iowa at 25. The coaches had them at 33. I had Auburn at 24. The coaches had them at 32. I had Washington at 23. And the coaches had them at 41. 41. It's a damn shame that I got to be the Huskies defender. That don't make no sense. Now, I had TCU in the air, well, in their air raid at 22. Coaches had the Horned Frogs at 38. I had Utah at 20. The coaches had the Utes at 30. And finally, I like Oklahoma a lot more than the coaches because I got them at 17. The coaches got them at 26. Now, on to the top 12 because the coaches and I both have Illinois and Arizona State at 11 and 12. Now, if you want to hear directly from the coaches themselves about how they got their programs to this point, check out my interviews on with Brett Bielema and Kenny Dillingham right here on Unafraid Show. Boom. Go ahead and click it after this video. Because at the top 10 spot, the coaches have Miami, and they made some great hires on the defensive side of the ball. The running game looks solid. Their offensive line is ridiculous. And if Carson Beck lives up to his salary, this is a college football playoff team. And I'm actually an even bigger believer in Mario Cristobal than the coaches because I got Miami at 9. But the coaches, they have LSU at 9. And honestly, with how brutal the Tiger schedule is in 2025, finishing ninth wouldn't be massive at all because it all hinges on the defense. Because this offense is going to go crazy this year. And I have Brian Kelly's crew at number 8. Now, at number 8, the coaches like Alabama. And I feel like that's redemption for everybody who criticized me for having them at number 10. Because nobody is afraid of Alabama right now. And they are like they used to be able to throw their jerseys out on the field and win. Them days is over. Nick Saban ain't walking through that door again, even though Kalen DeBoer is a really good coach. You know, and it is nice for people to actually feel like that because for the first time in over 15 years, Nick Saban is not on that sideline coaching. But everybody in Tuscaloosa, they are pinning up every single doubt, every single hate, and just waiting to say, see, I told you so. At number 7, the coaches have my Oregon Ducks. And I've talked about this plenty, but this is a championship caliber roster with a question mark at quarterback. And I honestly feel better about the situation with Dante Moore than the coaches do in their poll, which is where I put my Ducks at number 5. Now, at number 6, The coaches have Clemson, but they also have 2 first place votes. So where are the 2 geniuses that out there that are like me that have Clemson's roster in 2025 as the best in college football with their coaching, with their players, with their quarterback, and everything in between? At number 5, Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish are the only team in the coaches' top 6 that did not get any first place votes. And I got Notre Dame at number 6. And whichever quarterback they go with, whether it's CJ Carr or Kenny Minchie, they will have everything that they need to succeed. Physical offensive line, one of the top running backs in all of college football, and and some good transfer wideouts. Now maybe they'll make another run to the championship game, but I have them at number 6. Now with 3 first place votes, the coaches have Georgia at number 4. I got them at number 7. I've talked to a bunch of Georgia people, even here on Unafraid Show, and they don't believe like that yet. And I'm definitely not as high on this roster, especially with all the unproven D line talent. Now, they might turn out to be good, but we got to make sure that Gunnar Stockton that he eliminates turnovers, and then Nate Frazier carries the ball at least 20 times a game, and they can actually catch the ball this season. If they do that, they are a CFP team. Number 3, the coaches. Oh, they like Penn State. Oh, the Nittany Lions got 14 first place votes. I got Penn State at number 3 as well. But they're also my top Big Ten team, and the coaches have a different Big Ten team ahead of them. Now, we'll talk about that in just a second. I love Penn State's roster. I do. But I have serious doubts about their quarterback, Drew Aller, as I could not have stated that anymore about him being a game manager and not in the slanderous way, not in the fact that every quarterback has to be a game manager. Now, I could be wrong, but then again, they don't need him to be a superstar to justify this ranking. Because if the defense plays up to his capability, and they feed the running back duo of Katron Allen and Singleton, this is going to be a special season for Penn State. All they got to do is win against Ohio State and Oregon, and one of them's at home. Now the coaches have Ohio State at number 2, 21st place votes. I got Ohio State at number 4, but I would have never considered giving them the nod to be number 1 after everything that they lost. Let's recap in case you don't know. The offensive line. Oh, no, excuse me. The offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, 14 NFL draft picks, all gone. Now, it doesn't mean that they can't repeat as champions because they won it all from the 8 seed last year. But the idea that they're the number 1 team out the gate, that ain't even something that I could have even considered at all. Now, maybe the coaches believe something that I don't, or maybe that they just believe in that a defending champion, that they should be dethroned on the field and not just in the preseason poll, which probably is it. And finally, at number 1, with 28 first place votes, the Texas Longhorns. Now, I got Texas at number 2. And just out of caution for having a newer offensive line to go along with Arch Manning, but this is probably the best returning defense in college football. And we know that defense, that it has a chance to win a national championship. And you guys, that is the Unafraid Show Daily Live for today. Make sure that you like, subscribe, get notifications, and tell a friend about the show. Peace out.